Happy Monday, and welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here today. Case Cracked is the show where we look into a mystery, and what are the critical pieces that help solve that mystery. Today's episode was brought to us by a collaborator on this channel, Catherine Pear, and is called Watching Lindy. On December 5th, 1975, 19-year-old newlywed Lindy Sue Beekler had worked hard all day. Christmas was around the corner, and the florist that she worked for, Landis Flowers and Gifts, was trying to get ahead of the season's rush, tying up bunches of poinsettias with ribbon. Lindy had worked for the shop for 6 months and loved it. She and her husband Phil had married in October of 1974 and were ready to move from the apartment they lived in to a new home. Phil, who studied art at Millersville University, needed more space for his creations. Lindy was anxious to have enough space to get their first dog. Around 5:15 p.m., she left the florist shop and headed to Phil's workplace at Hertz Rent-A-Car to pick up his paycheck. She needed to buy groceries, and after depositing his check, she paid bills and did some other shopping. She arrived home at their Spring Manor apartment in Manor Township, Pennsylvania, around 6:30 p.m. Later that evening, her aunt and uncle were supposed to be stopping by to exchange recipes, and she wanted to make sure the house was ready. When they arrived at 8:46 p.m., they were surprised to find that her front door was open and it had blood on it. As they entered, they also found blood on the carpet. In the hallway, between the living room and the dining room, they found Lindy. She was lying on her back and bleeding from multiple wounds, a kitchen knife protruding from the left side of her neck. The police were called, but when paramedics arrived on the scene, they pronounced her dead. Her autopsy would show that she had been stabbed 19 times. When she was found, her blue jeans were unbuttoned with the zipper down. Defensive wounds indicated that she had fought fiercely for her life. Tests would confirm that she was indeed sexually assaulted, and investigators now had samples directly from the perpetrator, including DNA. However, in the mid-70s, the options for using that as an investigative lead were pretty slim. They also had some of his blood that was found on her clothing. The groceries she had bought hours earlier were still sitting on the dining room table. Some were unpacked, which showed that she had been putting them away when she was attacked. Investigators and family both agreed that her killer must have been someone she knew. The only other real clue found at the crime scene was a bloody footprint that her attacker left in the kitchen. A man had been seen in the area that night, and a composite sketch was worked up and shown to the public. No leads came from the drawing. Phil was questioned, but quickly released when it was found that he had been at work during the attack. When friends and family were questioned, they stated that Lindy did say she thought she was being followed and watched by a man, but they knew nothing more about the situation. A car had also been seen during the hours of the attack, sitting double parked near the apartments with its headlights on. This info was shared with the public, asking for help identifying the dark-colored, standard-sized American vehicle. From December to February, nearly 300 people had been questioned. Even though investigators believed that the killer was in the area, no leads could be found to track him down. In October of 1982, investigators felt a man named Gerald Eugene Stano might be responsible for Lindy's murder. Stano had recently been arrested in Florida and claimed to be responsible for the deaths of 37 women. His father lived near Lindy's apartment. When pictures of Stano were distributed, investigators were unable to find anyone who recognized the man, and by January of 1983, he was removed as a suspect. Over the next several years, even psychics were employed. The Lancaster District Attorney's Office paid $2,000 to have 2 psychics in California evaluate the case. They claimed that her attacker had a tattoo on his arm and had dark or olive skin and dark or brown hair and eyes. Their description seemed to identify the killer as Mark Capilupo, a man who had been charged with sexual assaults in Lancaster County back in 1975. He was ruled out as a suspect when it was found that he was at work during the murder. As the years trickled by, investigators ruled out more suspects before Lindy's case finally just went cold. Her file was picked up again in 1997, and a full DNA sequence was gathered from the crime scene evidence. The sample was uploaded to CODIS, but no matches were found. The FBI did offer some advice on the case by saying that the killer was known to her and that this crime was committed in a fit of rage. 5 years later, a group called the Vidocq Society decided to look at the case. This group of 50 criminal experts meet monthly to offer their insights on unsolved cases to investigators. Sadly, they were also unable to come up with anything new to help the case. In 2019, Cece Moore and Parabon Nanolabs entered the picture when samples of the crime scene DNA were sent to their facility. She could tell that the sample had come from a person with Italian descent, specifically a family line from Gasparina, Italy. Their next step was to release a phenotype snapshot, essentially a computer-generated simulation of what the killer may look like. One picture showed the man at age 25, and the other pictured him at 65. Ms. Moore also worked on the genealogy, using newspaper articles, court records, as well as other documented records. At the time of the killing, there were about 2,300 people living in Lancaster County who were of the correct descent. When she narrowed them down further, she found that there were only a few men who were the right age and who had descended from the correct family. The most promising suspect was named David Sinopoli. Sinopoli had worked as a press operator in the area for more than 40 years. Little is known about him. It was found that a year before Lindy's death, he married his first wife. The couple lived in the same apartment complex as Lindy and Phil, but moved out before the murder in August of 1974. When his first wife was questioned, she claimed that Sinopoli never mentioned Lindy. She said they knew the girl, but said no more than a passing hello when they lived there. Their marriage produced 2 sons before they grew apart and divorced in 1986. By 1987, he was married again, with another child on the way, this time a daughter. When investigators looked at his criminal records, they found that he had only ever been arrested once. In 2004, Sinopoli pled guilty to invasion of privacy and disorderly conduct when he was caught spying on a woman while she laid naked in a tanning bed at the business that his wife owned. Now, investigators needed a way to compare their DNA samples to Sinopoli. In February of 2022, investigators staked out Sinopoli and his wife while they waited for a flight to Aruba at the Philadelphia International Airport. When he discarded an empty coffee cup, investigators retrieved it and sent it off to be tested. By the summer of 2022, investigators had their results, and they were a match. David Sinopoli, now 68 years old, was taken into custody and charged with 1 count of criminal homicide. He is being held without bail. At a press conference after the arrest, Lancaster County District Attorney Heather Adams said this case was solved with the use of DNA, and specifically DNA genealogy. And quite honestly, without that, I don't know that we would have ever solved it. The reality is that David Sinopoli was not on our radar. No one knows why Lindy was targeted. She and her husband had only been married for 15 months before her life was taken. Her family says they've prayed every night for 46 years that there would be justice for her death. Now, we have a pending trial. But with a DNA match of this nature, the odds of conviction look promising, and the truth is now known. Case cracked. I would like to thank the Washington Post, Fox43.com, the New York Times, PennLive.com, abcnews.go.com, TrueCrimeEdition.com, NPR.org, and newspapers.com. Of course, the biggest thank you goes to Christy Arnhart for researching and writing up today's case, and here she is to discuss it with us now. Well, Christy, a little bit of a familiar outcome with this story. Thankfully, we've seen some stories end like this before. Basically, it's Parabon to the rescue.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm so glad every time I see their name. I really am.
Yeah.
Now, there was something really interesting that I found involved with this case. In 2007, Phil began talking to another murder victim's family member. On December 21st of 1992, someone beat and raped and strangled Christy Mirac.
Oh,
Now,
yeah. Christy Mirac case. One of the earlier kind of Parabon, at least media famous, I guess is the best way to say it, cases. One that we also talked about as well. Perpetrator Raymond Rowe, known as DJ Freeze, a guy that was a wedding DJ. seemed like he followed her home or like stalked her basically.
Mhm.
She was a teacher. She had just bought she bought gifts for like all her students, and those were being wrapped in her apartment. Yeah, yeah, very familiar with that case. So Phil reaches out. Why would Phil reach out to the family?
So originally in 2007, Phil reached out to her family because they felt that there might be a connection in the two murders.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
Now, of course, DJ Freeze was caught in 2018. He was convicted. The sample showed the two weren't connected. But that same year, Phil began to wonder if that same technology could help catch Lindy's killer, and it did.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same company actually that's doing it as well.
Yeah.
Um, this case, from what I understand, also had something that is really terrible whenever we bump into this, but we have victims' families being taunted or even harassed by people. I don't know what motivates people to do this. What happened in this particular case to this family?
It's awful. And I can't imagine being a family member having to go through this. December 26th, 1976. Lindy's parents discovered that her tombstone had been vandalized. The stone was sprayed with red paint and it was chipped and nicked. Now, not long after that, in January of 77, the Manor Township Police received a letter marked urgent. Now, it's written as if it's from the man who stabbed Lindy and vandalized her tombstone. Police considered the letter a hoax and decided not to publish it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then we jump forward to December of 2000. Now they've decided to release the letter. And let me just read some of it to you. It's so disturbing.
Okay.
It says, "Hi, Sheila. Just eats up your heart knowing you haven't caught me yet. Still around. Lindy's marker on her grave just turned me on like she did, and the way she looked all bloody, like the paint on her marker. The scratch and nick marks represent the knife stabs."
What is wrong with people? Like,
I
that's
don't know.
unbelievable.
It's just horrible.
I mean, I'd say it's horrible and unbelievable if it was the person that did it. To think that this isn't even the person that did it, that's
I
sending that
know.
in? Like, what is wrong with you?
I don't know. But there is a definite problem.
Jeez.
Now, he also sent a message to the police chief.
Okay.
And that one, I'll tell you what, Chief Pig, you print this letter in the paper along with a picture in Friday night's Lancaster paper and Saturday morning's paper, and I might confess.
So this,
And
I mean, I've talked about this a little bit. Trolls exist outside of the internet. They have. And it's honestly through this work that I've figured that out, because I'll be working on a cold case or something and looking through at newspapers.com, going through the old newspapers from back at the time, sometimes, stuff in the 40s, 50s, 60s, way before the internet. And essentially you would have trolls write letters to the editor, get it published with that, and then sometimes the editor would respond, sometimes they wouldn't. This form of, and it's very clear, especially, and I know we've only heard a few pieces of this, it's very clear that they're trying to get the attention of this letter going in the newspaper.
yes,
It's that same basic, I need attention for something, and I'm going to do anything I can to get that attention. And what benefit? So
I don't know.
you get your dumb letter in a newspaper. Then what? You go buy 50 copies and put them up around your wall and sit in alone. Like, what? I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
but wow.
Yeah. Well, after they published this, a
Yeah.
specialist from the FBI shows up and says the killer likely did not write the letter, which I wouldn't think so. But the
Yeah.
writer possibly had an indirect or secondary role, is what he thought. But no other person of interest was ever developed. So this was just a hoax.
Yeah.
And what a horrible one.
Yeah, and this story seems pretty straightforward. I mean, it's basically you got a perpetrator that was living at the same apartment building, developed some type of thing for the victim that
Mhm.
lasted when he moved away, and he just figured out that he was going to come back. And then, you've also got him on charges for watching a woman in a tanning bed.
Mhm.
This is obviously someone that has some problems.
Yes.
Oh, goodness. And then of course you have a young husband in this, that loses his beautiful wife. What happened to Phil?
Well, that is actually a bright spot. Now, Phil Beekler finished college and went on to the University of Delaware, where he continued his study in fine arts and sculpture. He eventually married in 1990 and had a daughter.
Wow.
Now, yeah, he's now a metal fabricator and he creates his own stunning metalwork pieces. Definitely look him up.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that that's the outcome, because someone that goes through a trauma like that, you never know what it's going to do to their life.
Oh, yeah.
Could have easily derailed him from continuing his education, could have given him some, addictions to deal with. Like, there's a lot of negativity that could really come from a life event like that. Really happy to hear that he was able to stay on track with that and get through it. Oh, geez. Chrissy, thank you so much for all your hard work on today's episode. We really appreciate you. And I've got some other people to thank right now. Thank you, PayPal supporters Jennifer Dixon, Angela Welch Sola, and Amanda Beard. For over 6 years, we've always run limited commercial ads here on YouTube, and we can't do that without support. If you'd like to help the channel keep going, please visit lordandarts.com. There you can sign up for Patreon, sign up for PayPal, buy merchandise, or even just buy us a coffee, like Carolyn Schmidt recently did. We know that learning about the mechanisms that help support and find justice in these cases is important to understand the many unsolved cases we also cover, and we really appreciate your support in allowing us to continue doing that. Remember, you can get another Lord and Art story every week on the Seriously Mysterious podcast. A new episode is coming tomorrow and every Tuesday after that. Visit seriouslymysterious.com and subscribe on your favorite podcatchers. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe below and hit that bell icon if you want to catch one of our weekly Secret Studio live shows. And of course, I'll be back with a new unsolved mystery for you on Friday, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.